guys, welcome back. I'm really excited about today's video because it has to do with one of my favorite hobbies, and it's reading. I want to share with you guys today the books that I read in 2017 and what books I want to read in 2018. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So for last year, there's a website that I use called Goodreads.com, and there what they do is that they have a yearly book reading challenge, and you set the number of books that you want to read in a year, and you go back there and you update your progress as you go. So last year I set my goal as 12 books, and according to Goodreads, I read 15, even though I think I read more. I just may not have logged them. But yeah, I did read all these books last year, and I'm going to give you a quick just the title of the books that I read. If you guys have any questions about them, let me know down below, and now I'll give you more information about the books. So in the year, some of the books that I read a lot of, I got really big into like historical books, but historical fiction novels, not non-fiction books about history. I try to read a couple of non-fiction, I try to read a couple of non-fiction books, history books, but I couldn't get into them. I like more of the novels. So one of my biggest favorites that I have is mostly the Tudor court and like the kings and queens of England and France. So I read a lot of books having to do with this topic. To name a few, I read The Other Boleyn Girl, which I know is like an old thing, but after I started, and this is not the order I read them in. I had read a few other books, and I was interested in this one because I remember watching the movie. I was like, I wonder how the book, like how the variation between the book and the movie is. So I read that one. It was okay. I did read another book called The Taming of the Queen, which is about Henry Tudor's, Henry VIII's last wife, Catherine Parr. I read a book called Rival to the Queen by Carolee Erickson. I read a book, it's like a collection of books called The Boleyn Inheritance, and it has a few books written by Philippa Gregory within it. All of them have to do with the different wives and people that have to do with the Tudor court. I read, let's see what else. I'm looking at the list here. Any other books that I read? Oh, I did read books 1 through 8 of the Harry Potter series, which I had never read before, but I did read them. And I think that's all the books that I read last year. This year, my goal is to kind of branch out into a little something, different kinds of books. I usually stick to, non-fiction. Oh my gosh, I can't get this straight in my mind. I usually stick to fiction books that have to do with like romance and stuff. So I want to kind of like branch out a little bit more. And the 4 books that I've decided to start with, I think each one is a little bit different than the others. The first one, and this is not in the order I want to read them in, I'm going to read them in whatever order they become available to me. The first book is called The Elizas, and it's written by Sarah Shepard. Sarah Shepard is the author of the Pretty Little Liars books. So when I saw that this was one of her books, I was pretty excited, even though I did not read the Pretty Little Liars books. I did watch the series all the way through, and I know it wasn't written by her, the series, but it's kind of based on the books, and it's not the same because I did start reading the books, but I was watching the show at the same time, and there was too many differences for me to be able to like keep them straight in my mind, so I just left the books aside. But anyhow, going back to the book, it's called The Elizas, and the description that there is online about the book says, Shepard brings her knack for the tightly wound thriller that earned Pretty Little Liars its runway success to a whole new demographic. As novelist Eliza Fontaine delves into the investigation of her own attempted murder, things quickly take a turn for the metatextual. Embroiled in situations that eerily mirror her fiction, the lines between reality and Eliza's own imaginings rapidly blur. Clever and attention-grabbing, this is one book you won't be able to leave sitting on the nightstand for long. So that's the first one. Then another one that I would love to read, it's called, and this is me trying to delve into a little bit more classic books, I guess. It's a book by Agatha Christie called Murder on the Orient Express, and I've never read any Agatha Christie books. I've never really read books by like the classic art authors. I read for fun, and I like to do light reading. I don't like to get into like too much of analyzing and stuff like that, because again, I read for fun. My sister is a reader, and she can sit there and pick a book apart, like dissect it, analyze it front to back, and she's great at that. But I'm not like that. I'll read a book and be like, hey, it was good. That's my description of it. But my sister, again, she has, actually, I'll link her channel down below. She has a channel all about book reviews and recommendations and stuff like that, and she's great at that. But these books I read just for fun, so I've never really gotten into like I've never thought of getting into like the classic writers and stuff. But again, trying to broaden my horizons, I decided to try to read more well-known authors, and this is the first one that I went with because I read like a list on BuzzFeed, I think it was, of books that you should get into, and this is one. Now, if you are an Agatha Christie fan or reader and you think that there's another book that I should start with other than this one, please let me know, because I would really love to start off on the right foot so I can have the best first impression of her as an author as I can. So anyway, Murder on the Orient Express is what I want to read. Next is a book called Mean Streak by the author Sandra Brown. Again, this was like on a list of like I think it was like romance thrillers you have to read. I've never read a romance thriller. I don't think I have. So I decided to read this one. And the description of this one, it says, Dr. Emery Charbonneau, a pediatrician and marathon runner, disappears on a mountain road in North Carolina. By the time her husband Jeff, miffed over a recent argument, reports her missing, the trail has grown cold. Literally. Fog and ice encapsulate the mountainous wilderness and paralyze the search for her. While police suspect Jeff of instant divorce, Emery, suffering from an unexplained head injury, regains consciousness and finds herself the captive of a man whose violent past is so dark that he won't even tell her his name. She's determined to escape him and willing to take any risks necessary to survive. Unexpectedly, however, the two have a dangerous encounter with people who adhere to a code of justice all their own. At the center of the dispute is a desperate young woman who Emery can't turn her back on, even if it means breaking the law. As her husband's deception is revealed and the FBI closes in on her captor, Emery begins to wonder if the man with no name is, in fact, her rescuer. So yeah, the last book that I want to read, it comes recommended by my sister, and it's called The Cuckoo's Calling by Robert Galbraith. And it says, after losing his leg to a landmine in Afghanistan, Cormoran Strike is barely scraping by as a private investigator. Strike is down to one client and creditors are calling. He has also just broken up with his longtime girlfriend and is living in his office. Then John Bristow walks through his door with an amazing story. His sister, the legendary supermodel Lula Landry, known to her friends as the Cuckoo, famously fell to her death a few months earlier. The police ruled it as a suicide, but John refuses to believe that. The case plunges Strike into the worlds of multimillionaire beauties, rockstar boyfriends, and desperate designers, and it introduces him to every variety of pleasure, enticement, seduction, and delusion known to man. You may think you know detectives, but you've never met one quite like Strike. You may think you know about the wealthy and famous, but you've never seen them under an investigation like this. Introducing Cormoran Strike, this is a acclaimed first crime novel by J.K. Rowling, writing under the pseudonym Robert Galbraith. So as you know, she is the person who wrote all of the Harry Potter books, and she writes under this pen name. So my sister said that, she thinks I'd enjoy it, so I am going to read this one. Actually, I think I'm going to listen to this one because I get my books, most of my books I get them from the public library, my local library. You can get ebooks, you can rent, check out. I don't even know what the correct terminology for that is. You can borrow ebooks through your phone or through your tablet or electronics, and that's how I'm going to be. I saw that they have this as an ebook, so I'll be listening to it. Again, so yeah, that's it, guys. That's my list, the first 4 books I want to read. So again, I plan to try to come back in a couple of months when I've read these, or I don't know if I'm going to do them like as I go reading them, come back and talk about them, because I have the worst memory when it comes to retaining information about books. But yeah, I think I might come back after each one, give you guys a little update about how it's going, and once I finish them all, then I'll come back with a list of 4 more books that I'll be reading for the next part or the next section of the year. If you guys have any more suggestions of books I should read, let me know down below. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!